Hello and welcome to Living with Intent. In this video, I want to continue on from the previous video. So if you haven't seen the previous video, please check that out. In this video, I'll be talking more about insulin resistance rather than diabetes, since it's really insulin resistance, and some of the diseases that are caused by insulin resistance. And let's see where this takes us. So insulin resistance is the root cause of a whole host of diseases. I mean, pretty much every disease you can think of, these are metabolic diseases. There was a time when we suffered from infectious diseases like polio, smallpox, the plague, malaria, and on and on. These are infectious diseases, but these days we are plagued, pun intended, with chronic and metabolic diseases. A metabolic disease is one that is caused by the food you eat. Yes, the food you eat gives you these diseases. Now, a lot of them used to be considered genetic, and it's easy to kind of make that correlation, but it's difficult to prove that causation. You grow up in a household that eats certain foods, and as you become an adult and you have your own household, you continue to eat those foods. So if your parents suffered from certain diseases, it's likely you will too. That doesn't make it genetic. It just makes it because of the fact that you eat the same things, and so you end up in the same place. So let's talk about some of the diseases, or list out. I don't want to talk about each of those, but might go into some of the details of some of them. Let's talk about some of the diseases caused by insulin. Now, they each have a different name. They each treated differently, as if they are completely different issues, medically that is, as in you're given different medication for the different diseases, even though the root cause is the same, and nobody's treating the root cause. They're treating the symptom. So we have metabolic syndrome, high triglycerides, obesity, cancer. Now, a lot of digestive issues are caused by grains, but I'm going to be talking about grains. So grains cause a whole host of issues. Milk, a whole host of issues. Fruits, or fructose and fruits, a whole host of issues. I'm sticking to issues or diseases caused by insulin resistance, and not so much by grains, even though grains can also cause insulin resistance. But grains cause other issues in addition to insulin resistance. So then we have in the heart, you have high blood pressure, atherosclerosis, strokes, arrhythmia, and on and on. Then for you have joint pains. It could be aches and pains, just generally. It could be, knuckles, wrist, whatever. All of these are caused by insulin resistance, but you also have arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis as well. And various other joint pains. For women, you have things like PCOS, ovarian cysts, cystic fibrosis, miscarriages, the inability to get pregnant, heavy periods. Now, I don't know what that even means, or when it's heavy or not, so I won't be able to answer those questions if you have any of those. In men, you have erectile dysfunction, you have low testosterone. And this is very interesting with insulin, high levels of insulin or insulin resistance. Actually, how do I correlate the two things? So let me just back up a little bit. For diabetes, we measure blood sugar. Blood sugar is, if at all, is a proxy, meaning it's not exactly what you should be measuring. You're measuring something else. And an example I would give you is a cop standing on the side of the road trying to measure the speed of vehicles passing by. And rather than measuring the speed of the vehicle itself, the cop is measuring the wind speed as the car passes by. Well, that's a proxy. Now maybe the wind is going in this direction, and so it's augmenting, or it's adding on to the speed. Whereas if the wind is going that way, then when the car goes this way, the wind speed won't be the same. So a proxy is not quite exactly the same, right? So we should be measuring insulin, because insulin is the real problem. Now, insulin is not a problem as a hormone generally. Insulin is an anabolic hormone, which means it helps to build. If it weren't for insulin, we wouldn't be on this planet. We wouldn't have been able to make it through winter if it weren't for insulin. The reason is that, imagine caveman, they didn't eat every day. They had no guarantees, leave alone 3 meals a day. They had no guarantees of any number of meals a day or when the next meal was going to be. So when they did get food like an animal, they pigged out, they overate. And what insulin would do then is would take that excess energy and store it away as fat. So that fat is then used later on when it's a rainy day, or there's a famine in some way, and they're not able to find food, and then of course the body feeds off the body fat. That's how we made it through winter as an early Homo species. And so to say insulin is a bad thing is incorrect. But of course, if you abuse your body, then insulin is still trying to do its job. It's still anabolic. It's still trying to store away the excess fat, excess energy as fat. Except we have excess energy 3 times a day, or maybe 4 or 5 times a day, and so we never get past that situation, and then that stored fat is never used because we're never in a situation where we don't get the food. So, and then the abusing of the body with insulin, high levels of insulin, then gives you insulin resistance as well. So that's really what the problem is. So continuing on with some of the diseases, we have cataract, glaucoma, to do with the eyes, retinopathy, which is of course a sort of a symptom, if you will, of diabetes, or people who have diabetes will eventually get retinopathy. You could also get tunnel vision. I had a colleague of mine a few years ago that had tunnel vision. Apparently he could just see from a small spectrum, or through his eyes, and that's caused by diet again, being in a state of insulin resistance. Oh yeah, so I was going back to the insulin with regards to male and female. So in women, high levels of insulin have produce more androgens. Androgens are the male hormones, and so women tend to get more facial hair and other parts of the body. They lose hair on the head. They get a deeper voice if it goes on for too long, and when they get the periods, they're heavier. In men, it's sort of the opposite. You have lower levels of testosterone. You have erectile dysfunction. Now, erectile dysfunction is not a cause due to the lower testosterone level. That's probably libido, but erectile dysfunction is mainly a vascular problem, meaning it's a blood circulation problem, or blood not reaching the penis and not being able to, or enough pressure. And so that's the different problem. But with men, it's sort of the opposite when insulin goes up. The other thing to keep in mind is, sorry, I'm digressing a little bit. Your body will not burn fat in the presence of insulin, meaning if insulin levels are higher, the body will sort of keep the fat intact. It won't let it go. It won't use it for energy. So as insulin goes up, the body will stop burning fat. So you could be starving, even though you got fat stores, but because the insulin levels are higher, the body's not going to release the fat, right? So the only time the body can actually make use of that stored fat is when insulin goes down. As somebody who's insulin resistant, your insulin levels are higher, and even though you're got enough, fat storage, you're not able to utilize that energy. Also, thin people can be insulin resistant. The symptoms of these diseases will exist. I'll go through the list of diseases, and if you have the symptoms or you have the diseases, they're stemming from insulin resistance. So to think, there's people, I've spoken to a few people who are skinny, not just thin or normal weight, they're skinny and they're sick. And they have things like, muscle pain, lethargy, anxiety, overly anxious people, very nervous, and they're actually sick. Okay, they got some disease, from this list of diseases I'm giving you, and they're being treated for that disease, but that's not treating the root cause. The root cause is insulin resistance, and they should be treating that first. So beyond the sort of the sex diseases, we have brain related. You have starting with brain fog, attention disorders, the various multitude of attention disorders, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, epilepsy, bipolar, and on and on. These are all due to insulin resistance. They're sadly, all of these diseases I mentioned so far are sadly treated like they're different diseases, given different medication as if they're all very different things. None of them actually cures. The medications don't cure these diseases, and yet we just keep going on as if it's helping. And then you have, I guess I've given you a whole host. So when I learned that insulin resistance causes all these things, and you can change your diet to not just prevent getting these diseases, but even if you have them, to reverse, to cure yourself of these diseases and to fix the body so it doesn't sort of go back in that state. Remember, this is not a fad. These diets that I'm talking about, or the lifestyle I'm talking about, is not a fad. This is how you live. So once you've adopted this diet or this lifestyle, you're on it, which means you don't have insulin resistance, and you don't have a host of these diseases, and you should never get them if you're sticking to this lifestyle. But the power that I felt, I felt so empowered to know that these are metabolic diseases, which means they're food-based, and I can control it. I can prevent it. I can cure it, all by simply changing my diet. And yes, in the scheme of things, changing your diet is simple if you want to do it for your body. The problem with medication, even though it seems like the simple thing to do, just pop a pill 3 times a day for the rest of your life. I mean, how bad is that? The problem is that the pills are not helping. They've never cured anyone. And medication is not treating the root cause, it's treating the symptom, right? After some of the study that I've done over the years, I realized that this body, the human body, is a marvel of, bioengineering. It has evolved over millions of years to be here today, and has survived all kinds of environments and issues and stresses, and we're here still without our help, without our brain's help. The body has learned to survive. It's a survivor. And I started to trust my body. When I get sick, I just don't eat, and the body fixes it. Okay, I haven't been sick in years now, but a couple of years ago I actually did get sick with some sort of an infection, and I just didn't eat, and in 2 days I was okay. And most people around me who were suffering from the same sickness, I'm not sure what it was exactly, they were down like for weeks, and in 2 days I was just fine. So the body has learned to survive. The body knows how to fix things. Let the body fix it. And I'll give you an example. You got a headache. You take a pill for the headache. Is the headache the problem? The headache is the symptom. We have to ask that question. So what causes the headache? Why do I have a headache? And by taking that pill, it's like the body produces a solution for the problem, and you're trying to squish the solution. You have high blood pressure, and the doctor gives you a pill to lower the blood pressure. Yeah? Why do you have high blood pressure? And is the body stupid? Do you think it does not know that it's doing something? It's raising the blood pressure for a reason, and I'll get into the details of that. It's not stupid. You need to trust your body. The body knows what it's doing. We don't understand the body, and we think we are smarter than the body, and so we come up with a pill and say, here, take the pill to lower your blood pressure. You're actually causing more damage by forcing the blood pressure down. The body is raising the blood pressure for a reason, and you're taking a pill to lower it. And this sort of thing, same thing, with cancer and all the diseases. So rather than rely on medication, trust your body. Trust that your body knows that there are things it can do, and it knows how to solve some of these things. Don't counter that by taking medication which is hiding or lowering the symptom. It's not treating, or it's not addressing the root cause. And insulin resistance is the root cause for all these diseases that I mentioned. Aging. So insulin resistance causes an additional problem, because what happens then is not only is it storing the excess energy as fat, because your cells are insulin resistant, the blood sugar that's in your bloodstream over long periods of time, because it's not going down that easily, is causing damage. Insulin's job is to get that blood sugar as fast as possible out of your bloodstream. The cells are ingesting sugar as well, because the only food you're giving your body is carbs. And every time we burn sugar for energy, our cells get damaged intracellularly, so inside the cell, they get damaged. Burning sugar or glucose for energy causes damage called ROS, reactive oxygen species. It just sounds dangerous. They are extremely reactive, as in their oxidation takes place inside the cell, causing damage to our DNA and causing damage to the DNA of the mitochondria that's inside our cells. Now, cells divide and produce new cells. That's like, sort of, we keep changing our cells. Every 8 years, all cells in our body have changed. Okay, they don't all change at the same time, but over the course of 8 years or so, all cells have changed. That cell division has to take place to produce new cells. But imagine if the cell is damaged. So think of a cell using DNA as the sort of the construction material from which to produce another cell to divide. Your DNA is damaged, and the cell produces a new cell from this DNA. This new cell is not as good as the previous new cell. It's slightly damaged, and this cycle continues until finally the cells cannot divide, and that's called senescence. And I'll talk about that a little bit as well, because the next topic is going to be on aging in this video. So this damage is causing you to age. The new cell is not looking as good as the previous new cells or the previous generations of new cells, and so you seem to be aging. You're looking older. Your skin is looking wrinkled, whatever else. So aging, people who are now studying longevity, and I forget what their name is, a very complicated name. It reminds me of Asterix comics for some reason. So these people are considering aging to be a disease, not a fact of life. A disease. Because again, it's caused by the food we eat. Now, there are animals, many animals on this planet that don't age. Okay, crocodiles. Can you imagine this big, huge thing? Crocodiles, they don't age. They do die. They die because they get sick, they contract some sort of a sickness, or they get injured in a fight, they can't fend for themselves. Basically, they can't feed themselves. And these crocodiles get bigger and bigger as they become older and older, but they do not age. A 10-year-old crocodile has this, although a 100-year-old crocodile has the same agility, everything the same as a 10-year-old crocodile. There's no difference. There are many other species, including like in fish, I can't remember all of the species, but there's jellyfish and there's sea urchins and clams, lobsters, and so on. Crocodiles, alligators, I think they both are ageless. I'm not sure what the term is. The reason that they don't age is because they don't get senescent cells. Now, like a lobster has an abundance of an enzyme called telomerase. Telomeres are at the end of our DNA. We have these little, like the end of a shoelace. It's like a little tip, if you will, the end of the shoelace. And the telomeres start to get smaller, shorter and shorter and shorter as we age. The question is, are they getting shorter and shorter, therefore we're aging? Or is it because that we're aging that they're getting shorter and shorter? Of course, it is the first one. And telomerase, this enzyme, helps build the telomeres, these little tips. So as long as your telomeres are long, a certain length and longer, you're not aging. But as you start to age, it becomes shorter and shorter, and eventually at some point you die. So these animals don't have senescent cells, which is essentially the cell that has become so damaged that it can't divide again. But it's not functioning. It's there. It's occupying space in an organ that's supposed to perform a certain function, but it's not functioning. It's like a zombie cell, if you will. It's old. It doesn't divide. And eventually that same cell, is just getting older and older. It's getting more and more damaged, and eventually it just doesn't do anything. One of the benefits, and I'll talk deeper about this in another video about fasting, is senescent cells are removed from the body and replaced by newer cells. Fasting also increases the length of telomeres. So that's not, one could think, that I'm doing this to live longer. I'm not. I want a long health span, but not a long lifespan. I don't care how long I live. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, so it really doesn't matter. But I want to live a healthy life. I want to live a life where I can utilize my brain to the fullest extent possible for as long as I'm alive, and utilize my body to the fullest extent possible as long as I'm alive, whatever length that may be. Physically, I want to be fit and able. Mentally, I want to be fit and able. So, if you're going to live your life, you might as well just live it physically and mentally fit. So I do that. I do this because of that. But going back to the senescent cells causing, or basically what you're seeing as older skin and of course internally older organs is because of the senescent cells. Now they did a study many years ago where, so there's some organization that had been taking images of the vascular system. And the intention was to train a machine to learn to identify the age of a person by looking at the image of the vascular system of that person. And so they needed many, many years and many, many, many images. Finally, they came to a point where the computer, this is not machine learning, by the way, but it's just a regular program, looking at all the information in these images. These machines were able to determine the age of a person within plus minus 2 years or something. So once they had that established, they did a study of people 65 and older, 30, 40 people. And of course, first thing they did, they scanned they got images of their vascular system, and the machine guessed their age within plus or minus 2 years. So some were, just around 65, some were 70, some were 80, whatever the case may be. But the machine was able to pick that up by looking at images of the vascular system. They kept them on a strict keto diet for 3 months. And they took images again of their vascular system. And the 65-year-olds had the internal vascular system of a 25-year-old. As in the machine is saying these people are 25 years old. So what I'm getting at is your chronological age, no matter how old you are today, and whatever age you will be tomorrow, your biological age can be very different based on the diet that you eat, the food that you eat, right? So keeping your body healthy keeps you biologically younger Even though chronologically, you're going to age 1 year every year, can't stop that. But biologically, you can be at a different age. And the telomeres give you the length, your lifespan, if you will, like how long you're going to live, depending on the length of your telomeres. So diverging a little bit, but it's all very interesting, so I get caught up sometimes. So going back to insulin resistance and the power that I felt when I learned all these things, that this is all metabolic, it's all in my hands. Medications are not working, they're treating the symptoms, they're not ever treating the root cause. And I have faith in this body, in the Homo sapien body, because it has evolved and survived without our help for millions of years. Who are we to think we know better than the body? So I trust my body. So at this point, I'm hoping this is going to encourage you. It's in your hands. This is your health. This is your life. And it's in your hands. And I hope you take it in your hands. I'll see you next time.